Hello, welcome to the Gym RPG show. Today we're going to be looking at the 3090 AIB cards. Now, there was an article in videocards.com and it had all of the prices in the UK for all of the different cards. So I thought that would be a good way to look at the different cards and see how the range stacks up. Now, if you convert the prices over, the prices are going to be a little bit high. So what I would do would be just to take the Nvidia price of the card, which is $13.99 MSRP in the UK, and then just add $100 on top if you're in the US, so it would be at $14.99, and I would just do that for all of the cards, and I think that would be the easiest way to get an understanding of how much it's going to likely cost. Now, just a quick note to say that this isn't really a technical analysis of the different AIB cards, because nobody has got their hands on any of them, so there's no information out there. This will purely be a look at the aesthetics of the card and just a few little features if I find there are any interesting features to talk about. And then at the end of the video, I'll do a top 3 of the video cards that you should consider when you make your purchase based on brand, reputation, value, aesthetics. Now it appears though Azus Strix is the most expensive card of the lot, and that kind of makes sense in a way because Asus is probably the most reputable brand here, and the Strix card is usually the one that is the highest tiered. And they have two Strix cards. They have the regular Strix and the overclocked version. Now, I would say that the overclock probably isn't worth the extra £20 that you're paying for it. And if you're getting a 3090 anyway, I assume that you probably know exactly how to overclock your card. That said, I think the Asus Strix here is pretty overpriced at £170 over the regular price, and I probably wouldn't pay that premium just for the Asus and Strix brand. Next up we have the Asus Tough series. Now it looks as though this has the regular price of $13.99 MSRP, so that seems like pretty good value to me. So if you don't want the Asus brand but you don't want to pay the premium for the Strix, I would just go with the Tough. Now it doesn't look as good as the Asus Strix. It looks like it has a little bit cheaper materials, particularly on the fan, but I think that should be okay if you don't really care about the aesthetics of the card too much. And I think there must be something wrong with the prices listed here, because I wouldn't pay the £100 for the overclocked version, especially when you only get maybe like 2% extra performance from that overclock card. Now the next range of cards are the EVGA cards. Now they have a whole range of cards, but they only have the price for the one card here, which is the ICX3, and that looks as though that's going for the regular MSRP, which is good news. That's a pretty good card, I think, and if I had to choose between that and the Tough, I would probably go with the EVGA card. I've heard a lot of people say that the EVGA cards have pretty good customer service, so if something goes wrong, then you'll be covered. Now the next brand we have here is KFA2, and I don't know a whole lot about this brand, but it seems as though that they've been around for at least one generation. They've done the 20 series cards. But basically, I think it's probably best to stick with some of the other brands unless you get a really good deal for this one. When I look over the marketing materials of this card, it seems as though it's using fairly cheaper materials, so I'm really not sure about getting this one. So the next card we have are the Pallet Cards. Now I would classify them as a mid-tier manufacturer, so they're probably in the same range as like the Zotac or Inno3D cards. That said, I really like the look of this card. I think they've done a great job with it just from the looks alone, and it doesn't look like they've used cheaper materials on this thing, so I'm pretty impressed with this one, and plus the price is the basic $13.99. I wouldn't pay the extra for the overclock for this, but I would definitely consider the Pallet card. Now next up we have the Zotac Trinity, and this must be their most basic card because it's priced at $13.99. I think between the two, between the Zotac and the Pallet, I would probably go with the Pallet on looks alone, but really you should consider the card based on the performance of the card. So the next brand we have is Inno3D. Now they've announced 3 cards the Ichill X4, the Ichill X3, and the Gaming X3 OC. With the Ichill X4, there's an extra fan on the side of the card. That's why it's called the X4. I don't really think that's worth it at all for the extra £30, so I wouldn't even worry about that too much. I don't think that is going to make that much of a difference. The X3 is basically the 3 fans without that extra side fan. And the Inno3D Gaming X3 OC is their most basic card, I think. So you can compare that with like the Trinity and the Gaming Pro from Pallet. Next up, we have the Gigabyte Cards. Now, they have announced 4 cards, but the Aorus Master and the Aorus Extreme, they don't actually have any marketing material of that, so we'll just be looking at the Eagle and the Gaming OC. So with the Master and Extreme, I don't know if I'd really pay the premium for that, the £160 and the £190 on top, because if I was going to do that, I'd probably just buy like the EVGA Hydro Copper or whatever and then water cool that. Now, the Gaming OC used to be called like the G1 or the Win4 series, and this was pretty much their basic 3 fan, and they also had a 2 fan version as well. But these were pretty reliable cards. They're pretty cool. Nothing spectacular with the cooler, but it did the job. And most people bought the G1s because it was a cheap card that had a pretty high overclock, which meant that you were going to get a higher bin card. But if it was £100 or $100 more, I probably wouldn't get this gaming overclock, and I would probably just get the baseline model for the £13.99. Now, I didn't talk much about the Eagle, but that looks like a pretty cheap card to me, so I would probably go with something else. Msi Ventus 3X looks pretty interesting to me because in the past they've had the 2X fans, but they've performed pretty well for having 2 fans. So with 3 fans, I assume this is going to be really good. And if that price looks right of £1,400, I think that represents pretty good value because it looks like it's got some solid materials on that card as well. The Gaming X Trio is priced £100 more, and I'm not sure if it's really worth it for this. Obviously, we need to get reviews, but it looks as though it just adds some RGB features. It might have a better cooler, it might have better materials, but at this stage it looks as though you may as well just get the Ventus 3X if you don't care about the RGB feature. Okay, from that roundup, here's my top 3 cards that I would consider based on, you know, all of the marketing materials so far. And so for 3rd place, we have Pallet Gaming Pro. I really like the look of this card. The card looks like it has some really solid industrial design, and you know, it's priced $13.99, and it looks like it's pretty solid. Number 2, I would probably go with the EVGA ICX3. That's a very reputable brand, and it looks like it's a solid card as well. And finally, number 1, I would probably go with the MSI Ventus 3X because the MSIs usually have pretty good cooling performance, and this one, it has 3 fans, and it looks pretty solid overall. So that's my top 3. And that about does it for this video. If you liked the video, please click the like button, and also make sure to subscribe to the channel for more gaming news, and I'll see you in the next one.